Welcome to Whatif tutorials. In this tutorial we will be looking at creating job task quotes. These are quotes as distinct from do and charge type quotes. Firstly, we'll be creating a job task header, then we'll be adding job task quote lines, and finally we'll be looking at using a job task template to create a job task quote. First, click Job Quotes. In the yellow section we have headers, the job quote headers existing, and in the blue section we have the lines for each quote. So quote 71 has these lines. Now this is a do and charge quote because you've got separate elements of cost, material, labour, subcontract appearing on the quote, and these quantities and sales values will appear on the quote. If we look at the quote here and look at it in the item layout, you'll see that each of the cost elements appears on the quote. Now this is a do and charge quote. We want to talk about a different sort of a quote, that is a job task quote. So let's create a quote header. Select our customer. I won't go through all of this here. This is covered in quote headers in another tutorial. We've now created our blank quote header. So to create a job task, we click Add Quote Lines, and in this section here is where we look to add a job task to the quote. You can add as many job tasks, that is, think of those tasks as separate tasks but appearing on the one quote. In many cases there will be just one task, that is one job on one job quote, but you may have several. So we'll start a new job task from scratch. You can copy from another job task or you can use a job template. We'll be looking at that a little later, but at this stage we'll start from a new job from scratch. Click OK. Now when we do this, we bring in defaults. The first default we need to look at is the job type. Now the job type, this is the default that was selected. If we want to use another job type, we can. Now the job type carries with it other defaults in the way of markups. So the job task can be broken down into materials, labour, overhead, subcontract and other costs, and we will be building these costs up in a moment. But we're saying to the system that we want to develop the target value for this job task by adding a markup to each of the individual cost components. Now you can make these what you like and vary them from job to job task, but these ones here are the defaults related to this job type which we've selected. Okay, so the other defaults that come in is a start date, or that which is determined by the lead time between now and the date to start. The duration is also the default duration. We can change it here to give us a completion date. Next we have the factory. This has come in from the quote header, and the customer, that's come in from the quote header, and also these site address and other details have come in from the quote header. Over here we see we've got pricing. Pricing is either variable or fixed, and this also comes from the job type. And all of pricing, variable or fixed, means is that with a template, if you're using a template to create a job task and it is a fixed type, that is the price is fixed or not to be changed, then the price that comes in with the template, and if it's fixed, it will not want to be changed. Here, however, we have variable pricing, which means we can put anything we like in our sales value. At this stage, you don't have to enter a sales value, but let's say you do, fine, that's okay. But there is no costs in here as yet. So at this stage, we simply say OK, exit A. We've got to enter a description. Text. Okay, so that now we should be able to, okay. Now this brings us to the specifications. We can write here a long description of the job task, and here we can put instructions for workers. Now if you want to print the long description on the quote, then we click that. So let's say, okay, at this stage we've now created a job task, but we've got sales value but no cost. To build up our costs, we've got the elements of cost being materials, labour and subcontract. So let's go in and add a material cost. There's two types of material you can add. One is material directly from the item master, and these are stock items only that can be added here. The other is a configured item, and you can add configured items that you have created for this job task. We haven't created any configured items for the job task, so we can't create any, so there's none there. But let's add a stock item, and we will select, say, this one here, and use. Okay, now we've got the stock item being brought in. We can specify sections to use it in. We can add a section, whatever you want, just to define where you want to use that item. Now the usage is determined by the job driver. Now this is the cost driver. By default, the cost driver is job. Now job has a driver quantity of 1, and this is in effect where there is no cost driver driving the usage. You can choose from other job drivers, but then none exist at this stage. So job task drivers for a particular task have to be created before, if you're going to use them, before adding items. But we'll just carry on with the job driver here at the moment, just to get this done. Then we'll add some new job cost drivers. So we enter the usage. This is the usage all up for the particular item we've got. Might be 25. Now repeat usage is where you have a standard usage and there's no standard usages defined. But if there were, and that standard usage was related to a driver unit, which was up here, you could repeat that usage a number of times here for this particular material item. But the default is 1. You can add some waste in here for the item. So now we've got a materials cost of 8807. Now that, when you look down here at the details, it's using the quoted details, which in turn are the standard cost details from the item master, and this shows you how those item costs are broken down or built up, if you like, from the supplier in his currency and by discount, and then landing charges where applicable to come down to a cost per buy unit, and then a cost per stock unit comes in up here. So the total cost is 335 times the 25 plus 5% waste. That gives you the 8,000. Now you can, in fact, in here at this stage say, well, I know that this is really going to cost 170, not 150, and that of course will change your quoted cost. So that's a material item from the item master file. Let's look at the labour. We add a labour item. It'll default to your default work centre, and the next thing we need is to create an operation, and that can be standard operation or it can be an unspecified operation. We'll stay with the unspecified operation. It's brought in the default manning here, but we need to maybe reconsider that, and we need to enter the number of hours required per driver unit. Now the driver unit is job once again, so we're looking at the actual elapsed hours we expect for this labour operation. You might have 12 and once again the repeat feature is available if you want to use it. So then efficiency, you can change the efficiency, and getting down then to an estimated man hours. So we've gone from a lapsed hours of 12 to an estimated man hours of 26.6 after adjusting for the manning and the efficiency. Now the next thing here is the labour rate that is going to be costed. This is the standard labour rate applicable to that work centre, and you can, if there are other labour rates, you can select from them, but there aren't any, so we'll stay with that. And likewise with the overhead, the default overhead cost is that from that overhead set, and if there was more, and there is, you could choose another one. So, okay, we're going to use that overhead rate for some reason, but now let's go back to our standard one. Okay, so that then comes down to a labour cost and an overhead cost. Okay, so we say OK. You can once again enter a long description for the labour, and once again you can, this will not appear on the quote because what's going to appear on the quote is the total for the job task, not the individual labour components, but this is for internal use only, and in your internal cost summary you can elect to print that information. So we'll say yes, we'll leave that in there. Okay, so that's labour, and lastly I'd like to show you the subcontract. Add subcontract, first select the supplier, then select the class. Now the class you see here has markup. This is not relevant in the job task scenario, it's only relevant in do and charge, because the markup of the subcontract cost will be done at the job task rates that we saw earlier. Okay, so we enter our operation details here and enter our cost per unit here. Make sure the units of the buy, sell and usage units are correct, and we enter the total quantity per drive unit. So this is the quantity actually we're going to use, and no repeat, just leave the repeat at 1, so we have 6170. Once again you have long description here which can be printed in the cost summary. Okay, so now we've completed that. So if we go back now to our job task and edit that, you'll see that those costs of material, labour, overhead and subcontract cost have come in. The system has marked them up at the default markups for this particular type of job, and that gives us a target sales value. The target sales value is 25,000. Remember, we put in a gross value of 50,000, which is quite in excess. So if we stay with that 50,000, we'll be earning 59% on this quote, whereas the standard would suggest we should be looking at only 18%. So maybe we can cut that back to 40,000 and still make a handsome profit here. So that completes that. Now if we go to print this quote, you'll notice we've only got one line on here. That is the job task. Go to the quote and it's going to look at that layout, job layout. So here you see, there it is. We've now got the job task description and the long description which we put in. Now that could be lines and lines long. In addition to those lines, you can add further comments. So you might put in your comments and you can say anything in here. Go back to the quote and have a look at it. That's interesting. Oh, that's better. Okay, so now we've got the comments coming in here. Okay, so there you are. That is the creation of the job task. Now you can add more and more job tasks here simply by saying start a new job. However, what I'd like to show is how you can use a job template to create a job task, which saves all of the work, the work we did just to create those material, labour and subcontract. So you say use a job template. Okay, there's a list of templates, there's only one, so we'll use that. Copy template number 1. So now it's brought in template number 1, and we've still got the customer details that have come in here already, and it's filled in this part. So you see now this particular template has all of these details in it, and also the template will bring in any job drivers. So I'll just say OK to that. So now we've got another job task, and it's already done, but if we wanted to actually adjust those things, we could do so. First of all, the task drivers have been brought in, so we might want to change the drivers here from say 6 to 3. Okay, and that, by changing that has changed these costs here. So if we go into the bill of materials, we've got our bill of materials and labour. We've got 2 operations in there. So by using a header, as we just did, a template I should say, by using a template you have all of these details of the material, labour and subcontract done for you. So that's how you create job tasks, say in a job quote which is of this type, where you have job tasks rather than doing charts. And that concludes this tutorial.